Hi YouTube, Playmaker here. So after a recent comment I got from Julie or Sofab or Mama Entertainments, whatever you want to call her, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to explain to you guys how the worlds of Kamen Rider and Super Sentai work. Now, Super Sentai, for those of you who don't know, is basically the original Power Rangers. They're what Japan came up with first before Power Rangers and Haim Saban adapted them into English and with English stories, or American stories. And Kamen Rider is a similar franchise that originated in Japan as well, but was barely ever adapted in America. And so, they're their own entity, their own superhero team. They're not Power Rangers, they're not Super Sentai, they're just their own thing, just like how Super Sentai are. Now, the question that Sofab or Julie had was wondering, wow, not knowing that the Super Sentai and Kamen Rider are in their own separate universes. Well, while that is true, they do have the tendency to cross over at times. For instance, here in Kamen Rider Gaim versus Tokyuger. Now, I don't have Tokyuger yet, but I do have Gaim. See, I do have Gaim there. And while they are technically separate entities, Power Rangers, Super Sentai and Kamen Rider, because of, obviously because people like the series and whatnot, they do have the tendency to want to make them cross over in unnecessary yet still action-packed crossovers that are enjoyable. And while it is unlikely, considering the continuity of each show, that they would cross over, they do it anyways. And the same thing for whenever a Kamen Rider teams up with another Kamen Rider. Now here in this movie, basically all the other Kamen Riders up until Wizard or Drive basically team up to fight a bigger evil. But so now I'm going to explain to you guys how not so much as each series of Kamen Rider works, but how the overall timeline and multiverse of them work. Now you see, the original Kamen Rider started off in 1977, or 71 I believe, with Kamen Rider Ichigo. That's he's somewhere, yep, right here, the green guy with the scarf, the one on the right. It started off with him, and they basically made up a lot more series after that. And this guy, Kamen Rider Kuga, started the Heisei Riders, which is what I collected, the series of Heisei Kamen Riders of Japan's Heisei era. Starting with Kuga 99, and this goes up to Decade of 2009. Get it? Decade. And then the second wave of Heisei, so there's O's, Wizard, Gaim, and a few others that I haven't collected just yet, but I'm in the market to get. Now, technically speaking, these shows exist within their own worlds, their own multiverse and whatnot, but that kind of changed with the first two series, Kuga and Agito. Now, Kuga existed in a world where there was just an ancient evil, and then this guy used an ancient power to fight him off and whatnot. But the police were also involved in this series. And that's important to know because in the second series that came a year after, Kamen Rider Agito, it was told there's another branch of the police that was a different branch from this one that fought the monsters. Now, they call the monsters here unidentified life forms, and a special task force of the police were charged in fighting them. But here, another task force of the police, called something else, I forget the exact name, but there were also a task force fighting the unidentified life forms. But Agito didn't fight unidentified life forms, he fought something called the Unknown. And they were a completely different series, but the police in this series acknowledged that these monsters existed in their world too, and in Kuga's world, they called him Unidentified Life Form number 4. And although they didn't say Kuga in Agito, they did say Unidentified Life Form number 4 fought them. And if you look closely, Kamen Rider G3, I've showed him off before, right here. If you look very, very closely, G3 bears a striking resemblance to Kuga, meaning that he may have well existed in the world of Agito, and that this is an alternate timeline where these two Kamen Riders coincide. Although he doesn't in this world, they're saying he does in this world, meaning that these two are the same worlds on, basically alternate timelines. But wait, it gets even crazier. Now, while those true facts remain true, that these two may be the same worlds, but of alternate timelines. And every series after is its own independent series. There was never anything connecting anyone before it. So this one, Ryuki, was never connected to this one was never connected to this one, or this one, so on and so forth. But that all changed with the inclusion of Kamen Rider Decade. Now, they called him Decade because it sounds like decade, as in 10 years after the first Heisei Rider, Kuga, in 99. This one came out in 2009. But what's interesting about Decade is that he has the power to transform into the suit and powers of every Kamen Rider that was before him, so he can have the power of all of these guys, and the suits and everything. But in the show, they also make it clear that he goes to different worlds called the world of Kiva, Deno, Kabuto, Blade, and so forth. He goes to each of their worlds and teams up with a Kamen Rider so he can use that power for himself. Responsibly, of course. But what's interesting is he goes to what's called the world of these heroes, but he doesn't meet them exactly. Now, what I mean by that is, so he does meet the Kamen Rider right before him, the year before him in 2008, Kiva. He does meet Kamen Rider Kiva, but he doesn't meet the actual actor that was before him. I mean, he kind of does, but he doesn't. You see, in each Kamen Rider world, he basically goes to an alternate universe of one of the shows that we saw before. Now, another example I would like to give, in the very second episode, he met Kamen Rider Kuga. Because, they start in the show, so they're wanting to make it clear that they're meeting the very first guy, the first and newest guy are meeting each other. But while he does go to Kuga's world and meets Kamen Rider Kuga, he doesn't meet the actual guy, Yusuke Godai. That was the name of the main character in this show, and he was played by a certain actor named, and I don't remember the actor's name, but his name was Yusuke Godai in this movie, in this series. But when Decade travels to the world of this Kamen Rider, he's a totally different actor who goes by the name Yusuke Onodera. Right? And in this series, the guy had a male police partner. He partnered up with a captain of the police force to help fight the monsters. But in the world that he went to of Kuga, Yusuke Onodera had a woman partner from the police force, and the world was a little different. So, and that's the same thing with the other Kamen Riders, like Kamen Rider Kiva. There was the guy of that series, Wataru Kurenai. He was supposed to be a 23-year-old man who liked to fight evil and rid the world of these fang vampire monsters. But in the world that Decade went to, Wataru Kurenai was a little boy, like a completely different actor from the one from this series, and he was the king of the monster species. Basically, yeah, like it was, so just like how these two worlds were meant to be alternate universes of themselves, this guy is going to alternate universes of all of them. So basically saying there's two worlds of this one, and then there's another one piled on top of them with every single one from here. And this gets even more confusing over time as all these Kamen Riders team up, not only with the new round of actors that are for these guys, but they also sometimes use the same exact old actors. Like, these two actors of Kamen Rider Blade and Kiva are the only ones that are the original actors from their series that meet up with this guy, but according to Decade's logic, every single Kamen Rider here is in an alternate universe from the one that we know, the one that these shows are made up of. And what's also interesting to think about is that after Decade, after 2009, a lot more Kamen Riders started to team up with the accompanying Super Sentai. Like, there's a Kamen Rider series out there called Ghost. I don't have it yet, but he met in the show. I actually have an episode on this DVD about it, where Kamen Rider Ghost met up with these Rangers, meaning that they were in the same universe as each other and everything around them was going on. But of course, when I say that it's preposterous that these series can go on with one another, it's just because of the logic of how their world works and with the other world. Like, for instance, Kamen Rider Phase, they made a lot of jokes here about Kamen Rider Phase teaming up with the world of Bakudu Sentai Aba Ranger, or Dino Thunder, as some people know. But in the world of Kamen Rider Phase, when a person dies, they have the potential to be the monsters of this world. The Orphanok. These white monsters that are like half human, half animal, half statue-looking things. I don't know. But like whenever a human dies, they either die or come back as a monster. But in the world of Phase, that doesn't happen. Like, no one even knows about that, even though that's supposed to be like a worldwide phenomenon. It's happened. They're supposed to be in the same timeline of the same world, like how Decade and Kamen Rider Guy mentioned before. But for some reason, they don't know about each other. So it hence the reason that these are in completely different timelines and worlds from each other, despite the crossovers. Now, interpret it however you like. Again, I've had years of watching all these series, and so far I've watched everything here, here, and here, except for this movie. I'm saving it for a special occasion, and I'm just waiting until I finish up like 1,000 different things until I can watch this series again, and I'm still just one out of 2 discs from this one, so long way to go on that one. So yeah, don't hold your breath, guys, but I gotta wait. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about this whole multiverse between the Japanese Power Rangers, Super Sentai, and the Kamen Riders. What you think about Kamen Riders in general, and see if you think you can make sense of how their multiverse works. All right, this is Playmaker, signing off.